So why is Tulsi Gabbard in Georgia? She has nothing to do with this. She's not part of law enforcement. This is a show, and you have to recognize this is a bit of a political stunt to appease Donald Trump.
I literally just said I do, yes. But I'm saying, like, there's nothing, like illegitimate about it. They had new evidence. They brought it to a judge. The judge signed off on it. And so what? We don't have to talk about everything he talks about.
Not only is he talking about it, he's acting on it.
He got a warrant from a judge.
But Batya, it's not just words. He is acting on it.
In this clip, we are going to see two Donald Trump defenders, MAGA defenders, whatever you want to call them, try and defend Donald Trump's actions when it comes to going head to head with the states on elections, and then also try and justify his actions in Fulton County. As usual, let's watch the clip in full, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, my perspective, sprinkled throughout, and then also in full towards the end. Let's get into it.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip. Let's get right to what America's talking about. We are often told when the president said that, he really means this. But when it comes to taking over the nation's elections, Donald Trump has been pretty clear. He wants to do it. After the White House tried to reframe, minimize, and ultimately sanitize Trump's unconstitutional call for Republicans to nationalize elections, the president is doubling down tonight.
I want to see elections be honest, and if a state can't run an election, I think the people behind me should do something about it. Because, you know, if you think about it, a state is an agent for the federal government in elections. I don't know why the federal government doesn't do them anyway. The federal government should get involved. These are agents of the federal government to count the votes. If they can't count the votes legally and honestly, then somebody else should take over.
And now, after backlash against Trump sending Tulsi Gabbard to an FBI raid at an election center in Georgia, the White House not only defended it, but proclaimed that she is now in charge of election security.
Tulsi Gabbard has been tapped by the President of the United States to oversee the sanctity and the security of our American elections. She's working directly alongside the FBI Director, Kash Patel. This is a coordinated whole-of-government effort to ensure that our elections, again, are fair and transparent moving forward. I don't see anything wrong with the President tasking a cabinet member to pursue an issue that most people want to see solved.
Gabbard, the nation's top intelligence officer, remains at the center of a mysterious and classified whistleblower complaint. Let's start with Trump insisting that the elections need to be federalized. He even said in that bite that we played that federal agents need to take over the counting of elections. Stacey Schneider, when you hear that from the president, first of all, should we believe him? And secondly, I don't know, should someone also provide him with a copy of the Constitution, perhaps?
That's a perfect question. First of all, your first question, should we believe him? Yes. When have we ever seen him not float his idea, get everyone all agitated, continue to float the idea, and then eventually follow through on it? So he could try it. He can't accomplish it legally. The Constitution has an elections clause that mandates that the states govern the time, place, and manner of our national elections. So for Trump to do this or accomplish this, the only way he could try to do it is by executive order, but it would be an unconstitutional executive order. So we're going to have all this dialogue floating around for days and back talk and coming back again. He legally can't do it. Will he try? Probably.
So,
And I just want to say really quick, imagine if this was Joe Biden that floated this idea. The way that the entire world has normalized the things that it is that Donald Trump says, that would be disqualifying for pretty much everybody else. But because of it, the fact that it's Donald Trump and a lot of people are scared of him, this has now just become normalized rhetoric, normalized, you know, talking points, literally trying to say and do something that goes completely against what the Constitution says.
Batya, I mean, a lot of people try to take what Trump says and they put it through the washing machine, launder it, and it comes out as something else. But Trump keeps repeatedly insisting that he wants the federal government to run elections in states that he lost because he thinks that if he lost, it wasn't fair. He's also said he regrets not seizing voting machines in 2020, again, when he lost an election. Is this productive? And at what point should Republicans say something about these lies?
I don't think it's productive. especially because it's impossible, thank God, not constitutional, and, so not going to happen. I do think that the SAVE Act is a great idea. 83% of Americans support it, as I learned on CNN this morning, and that includes, 76% of Black Americans, 82% of Latinos, 85% of white Americans. So to me, that's the move. Push the SAVE Act and force Democrats to admit that they are against what 83% of Americans want. I think this is all kind of just a distraction, a bit of nonsense.
Can I say one thing when we talk about distraction? Something that's not a distraction, that doesn't get a lot of attention, is that in Donald Trump's second term, every single one of his judicial nominees, there's been 38, every single one has said in sworn testimony, has not answered the question in sworn testimony whether Trump lost the 2020 election or what happened on January 6th. These are lifetime federal judgeships. These aren't spokespeople at the Department of Commerce. And it's really important as we talk about what's happening in Fulton County, as we talk about Gabbard, that we not lose sight of the fact that the President of the United States is reshaping the judiciary in ways that are deeply, deeply concerning. And frankly, this is going to be a problem for the country for decades to come.
Let me play. This is also Speaker Mike Johnson. And as you listen to this, just remember that Mike Johnson, before he was Speaker, back in 2020, was one of the lead proponents of trying to invalidate the results of the 2020 election. But here we are in 2026, and here is what he is saying today.
What you're hearing from the president is his frustration about the lack of some of the blue states, frankly, of enforcing these things and making sure that they are free and fair elections. We had 3 House Republican candidates who were ahead on Election Day in the last election cycle. And every time a new tranche of ballots came in, they just magically whittled away until their leads were lost. In no series of ballots that were counted after Election Day were our candidates ahead on any of those counts. It looks on its face to be fraudulent. Can I prove that? No.
But that in of itself is reason as to why you shouldn't even float this idea, because these are the sort of things that plant the seeds of doubt in Americans' minds. This is how it is that MAGA, people who once were not MAGA, can become radicalized. And someone in such a high position, such as Mike Johnson, should know better than to even put this idea out there. There's zero proof. You said you can't prove it. So if you can't prove it, why would you even mention it? It makes no sense. The reason why you are mentioning it is because you're trying to further the agenda of your boss, the President of the United States. And he is the architect of all of this.
Proof is important.
Do I have any proof? No. But when you count votes and we lose, it's fraudulent.
Look, I think that there is a question, Abby. Lots of Americans have questions about the integrity of their elections. And I don't think that's an unfair point. I don't think it's an unfair point for the president or Congress to invest resources, as Batya mentioned, via the SAVE Act, to ensure that not only do we have qualified American citizens voting in our elections, but to invest those resources to ensure that we have safe and secure elections.
You gotta acknowledge, though, Tim, that when you have elected officials like Mike Johnson making things up and saying nonsense like that, yeah, there's no question that some Americans will hear that and think it's legitimate, even though he has no proof, even though there's nothing actually untoward about votes being counted and it not being in his preferred candidate's favor. So none of that, I think, is justified. That doesn't justify continuing with these lies in the year of our Lord, 2026, 6 years after 2020.
And I think that all the more reason why we should invest resources into ensuring we have safe and secure elections, so that those questions don't have to be. How about we just stop
lying about the election?
Questions don't have to be. Well, look, Abby, if people see things
That's a really simple, elegant solution to this. Stop lying.
If people see things on the ground and they raise those concerns, and we can point to those investments that have been made that have made these elections safe and secure, I think that's the way that you go about doing it. But you're never going to stop people from having questions or pointing to irregularities that they've seen in the election process.
But there shouldn't be questions anymore. This was lawsuited all over the federal courts back then. And every single judge, whether Trump appointed or not, found that there was no election fraud. That's what evidence is all about. So Mike Johnson's talk about what magically happened doesn't really count in the United States. It's based on evidence. And to continue to spend taxpayer dollars to send in troops of FBI agents to raid the Fulton County elections office, even though they had a warrant to do so, a judge signed off on it. I'm not saying that they did anything improper. They followed the warrant. But the very idea of them going after and seeking a warrant to accomplish this 6 years later, when it's been disproven over and over again, and then to send Tulsi Gabbard there, when it is not her job to be on the ground conducting law enforcement. She is head of national intelligence. She is supposed to be monitoring the collection of foreign and national intelligence. She's not a law enforcement officer. She was sent there for the optics of it. She was sent there to legitimize Trump's investigation. And I do call it Trump's investigation because I don't think any of these agencies or departments would be doing this on their own based on what we know today.
Honestly, I'm sitting here and just hearing that Tim, the gentleman on the right-hand side of the screen, obviously MAGA, a Republican, it just frustrates me so much when I hear any MAGA bootlicker talk, because the reality is, like you can hear in their voice, they don't even believe what they're saying. They don't even believe what they're trying to defend. You can't defend this. 60 times Donald Trump took this in front of a judge. Judges he appointed, judges he didn't appoint. And over 60 times, he was batted away because there's absolutely no proof, no evidence of what you're saying. So why would Mike Johnson then come on TV and say, it looks fishy, but I have no proof of it? This is what sows the seed of doubt. This is the reason why you have crazy people like Gunther and Cat Turd go on Twitter and they will literally spew out a bunch of rhetoric, a bunch of lies, because they'll take it, put it as breaking, and then put the video of Mike Johnson spreading that. But then guess what? They'll cut out the part where it says, can I prove it? No. And then guess what? All their millions of followers, they then share it. This is how lies start. And for people that are in such a high position, such a high place in office, that shouldn't be allowed, that they can just openly, flippantly just lie.
That's really the issue too, Stacey, because there used to be a time in our country where the president was supposed to uphold the integrity of our election system, uphold the integrity of our democracy, not to question those things. Yes, there have been Democrats, Republicans, independents who've questioned elections for centuries. But the president of the United States, the person who holds the highest office, has always had that responsibility to keep the country together, to keep the country to have the faith in their electoral system. This guy doesn't care. He didn't even show up to the inauguration of his successor, and he's still challenging the results 6 years later. I tell you one thing about this, though, why Republicans should be trying to push him, and that's because it doesn't help Republicans in the 2026 midterms or the 2028 election, because the elections are about the future, not about the past. Nobody wants to go and relitigate the 2020 election except for a small group of Trump fans. Everybody else has moved on, like Trump wants us to do about Epstein. Everybody else has moved on from 2020. Let's focus on the present.
I think if there's a criminal complaint and a judge issues a warrant, our federal law enforcement resources and agencies do have an obligation to go investigate those. And I would say that, Keith, that I agree with you. I wish that every politician that loses an election would move on. But we saw Hillary Clinton do the same thing with they stole the election. We saw Chuck Schumer push a stolen election. Every politician who's ever lost an election has said someone stole the election. There were irregularities, and we have an obligation. We have an obligation to the American people to investigate those irregularities.
I want to correct something you said. There's a nuance to what you said that isn't really right. There is no criminal complaint here. There is Donald Trump's complaint. So when the U.S. Attorney's Office went to a magistrate judge to get a warrant to go into this election office in Georgia, all they had to do was present probable cause. That is a very low bar. Is there cause to begin an investigation and to look for evidence? That doesn't mean there's proof. That doesn't mean it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It means there's cause. It's very little that goes into an arrest warrant. It's one witness can swear it to an affidavit.
In this case, it was Special Agent Hugh Robert Evans.
Right, one
Who was the only person who testified that there was probable cause that there might be some sort of criminal activity.
So do you disagree with the judge issuing the warrant?
I can't disagree. The judge makes that decision. That's within their discretion.
Right.
So I'm not saying that it was wrong that they followed through on the warrant they obtained. What I am saying is the motives for obtaining a warrant in the first place are suspicious, because I don't think anyone in the government was planning on investigating the 2020 election until Donald Trump started getting on the track again that it was fraudulent and it needs to be investigated. I want the people prosecuted who did this. Did what? We don't have proof of that.
I mean, I have an honest question, Batya. I mean, isn't it legitimate for people to be suspicious or skeptical of what the Trump administration is doing around elections when Trump seems so enamored with things that are demonstratively false about his loss in 2020? and has already said multiple times that he is obsessed with relitigating that particular issue. Shouldn't people actually be worried that Trump is trying to undo a legitimate, free and fair election to rig it in his favor, because that's what he would have done in 2020 if he had been given a chance?
You mean a past election or a future election?
I'm saying that he is convinced that any election that isn't in his favor is not fair. And that's based on complete imaginary things in his own head. So if he's meddling with elections now, shouldn't people be worried about that?
Well, you can't really meddle in a past election.
I'm talking about future elections.
I mean,
and also, by the way,
he's trying to
meddle in past elections.
Exactly.
That's why we're going back to Fulton County.
But I mean,
he's definitely trying to meddle in past elections.
But it's sort of...
Guys, sorry, just really quick. Look at Batya's face. Can you guys see what she's doing? As Abby has posed this question to her, you can see the mental gymnastics she's trying to do in her head to try and justify what Donald Trump is doing. This is the reason why conversations with people like these guys is pointless, because they're never in good faith and they're bootlickers. They're going to do whatever they can to try and justify Donald Trump's actions.
Like, you can't... okay, anyway.
I mean, he is meddling. He is both meddling in past elections and he's talking about future elections.
If a judge heard information that caused them to issue a warrant, I would like to know what that information was to see if I consider it to be compelling or not. But I mean,
I'm talking about the president's motivations for what he is doing. His motivation is that I lost, so therefore it is invalid. And that's not true. So then he's going and he's meddling in past election results and future election results.
But if that's not true, what's the problem with looking at the evidence?
Wouldn't a reasonable person look at that and say, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he doing that? Is he trying to make it so that in the future, if he ever loses, it looks like he wins?
Well, first of all, if he won, which I believe he won, then
you believe he won the 2020 election?
Sorry. No, I think he lost.
Okay.
If he lost the election, what is the problem with looking at the evidence? All the evidence will suggest that, right? All of the evidence will be there to back up that claim.
We've
already litigated that.
And second of all, as Tim pointed out earlier, there are millions and millions of Americans who feel that our elections are not safe. Now, if I was in charge, this is not the way I would go about reassuring them that our elections are free and fair. I would focus on the SAVE Act. I would focus on citizenship. I would focus on photo ID, which is something that the vast majority of Americans support. So this is not the avenue I would choose, but he is representing millions and millions of Americans who have a lot of doubts about how things went down.
But the question is, why do so many Americans have the seed of doubt? Because this is what Donald Trump manufactured by pushing this lie. This is what it is that he done. And if you guys don't understand, this is textbook Donald Trump. He will sow a seed of something, and then when he sows it, his followers, his cult following, will then run with it. And then this is what gives him justification to do the things. American people are happy. American people are happy with this. The American people are happy with that. But the reason as to why we are here is because of Donald Trump's, because of MAGA Mike Johnson saying things on the world stage and then ending it with, but I can't prove it.
I think the problem is that exactly what Keith said. Americans are over this. They are looking forward, not backwards. But by the same token that the president is talking about something no one cares about, so are we. You know, like, why are we talking about this?
Yeah, because he's talking about it.
So what? We don't have to talk about everything he talks about.
Not only is he talking about it, he's acting on it.
He got a warrant from a judge.
Hold on, but Batya, it's not just words. He is acting on it. He's acting on it. He has now appointed Tulsi Gabbard to do what exactly? I mean, they haven't even said what the scope of her job is. All we know is that Trump falsely claims that elections that were not rigged were rigged. So if he now has put someone in charge of unrigging elections that were never rigged in the first place, what is he doing exactly?
If you think they're not rigged, what is the problem with people doing investigations? Like,
because we've already investigated
this. You don't think there's a better use for our government resources? I literally just said I do,
yes. But I'm saying, like, there's nothing, like illegitimate about it. They had new evidence. They brought it to a judge. The judge signed off on it.
And no one's saying it's an illegitimate action. The motivation behind the action appears to be quite illegitimate. We're litigating now something. Trump is looking to have people prosecuted for election fraud. So now they've got to start backward, go through the records and try to find somebody who committed an illegal act. This has been put before more than 60 federal
someone to be prosecuted if they committed election fraud, right? You agree with him.
Yeah, and you know what I would do?
Right?
If somebody was guilty of a crime, I would send even the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who is mysteriously absent from this entire process, she's in charge of the DOJ and she's in charge of the FBI. So why is Tulsi Gabbard in Georgia? She has nothing to do with this. She's not part of law enforcement. This is a show, and you have to recognize this is a bit of a political stunt to appease Donald Trump.
But by that
It's
same
hard to look at
token,
it
the
any other
fact
way.
that
Leave it.
Okay.
Okay.
Honestly, the extent that it is that Batya will go through to try and justify Donald Trump's actions, and also the Tim guy on the other side, is just embarrassing. And I continuously say, why is it these people cook so hard for Donald Trump? It just baffles me. The reason as to why people should have a problem with this is because, listen, Donald Trump is the president for the people of the United States. They're the people he should be serving, but he's not doing that. This is a guy who's here for retribution, to enrich himself and his family more and more, and to get revenge on those people who he believed done him a wrong. That's the reason why this is stupid. Because in front of 60 judges, it was absolutely batted down. This is so pointless, but it shouldn't surprise me in any way, shape or form. This is what it is that these guys do. They will cook so hard for Donald Trump. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this exchange in the comment section down below. While you guys are down there, do me a massive favor, hit the thumbs up button purely for the YouTube algorithm. And if clips like this, along with my perspective, my commentary, and my opinion are of interest to you, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. I will let you know I do pause the video as you've seen and give my opinion throughout. So if that's not for you, maybe this channel isn't for you. But if you are interested in hearing someone across the pond's perspective and opinion, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification so you get notified every single time we upload a brand new video. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.